Hello, and welcome to episode 24 of Triumph Beyond Trauma. Today I have Roger Eichler. Born in the 1960s to German immigrant parents, Roger had instilled in him the virtues of a strong work ethic and doing what's right for family, community, work, and career. He joined the New South Wales Police Force and began a career in an organisation that felt normal, as it fit well with the values he was raised with: rules, regulations, punctuality, and being strong-minded and focused. He was on a path to advance his career and protect the community he served. However, one night in August 2006, that all came crashing down through an incident that eventually culminated in Roger losing his identity, career, and almost his life. It was the unconditional love of family and friends who supported him through some significant struggles with mental health that has enabled him to turn his experience into purpose and become an advocate to assist other veteran members of emergency services with their mental health while championing the cause to help those who have served. Roger and his wife Libby now live in rural New South Wales with 3 loving children who have established their own successful adult lives in Australia and the United Kingdom. Roger's book is called The Price of Protecting Others, a memoir of a country cop and the impact on himself and his family. It is a beautiful book and one that I recommend for sure. I'm going to add a content warning for this episode. We do have discussions about jobs involving deceased people and also about Roger's suicidal ideation, so please be mindful about your own capacity to listen to this episode today. It was such a joy to speak with Roger, and I cannot wait for you to listen, so let's get stuck in. Welcome to Triumph Beyond Trauma, the podcast that explores journeys of resilience and hope. I'm Rosie Skeen, a yoga and breathwork teacher and founder of Tactical Yoga Australia. As a former soldier's wife, mum to 3 beautiful kids, and a medically retired New South Wales police officer with PTSD, I understand the challenges of navigating mental health in the first responder and veteran community. Join us for incredible stories from individuals who've confronted the depths of mental illness and discovered their path to happiness and purpose, as well as solo episodes and expert discussions. Together, we'll uncover the tools to help you navigate your journey toward a brighter, more fulfilling life. Whether you're looking for helpful insights, practical tips, or just a friendly reminder that you're not alone, Triumph Beyond Trauma has got your back. You matter, and your journey to a happier, more meaningful life starts right here. Welcome to the show. And I'm so glad to have you on because I loved reading your book. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I poured my heart and soul into it. Yeah.
Oh, you can tell. And I really loved it, I think, because I was a country cop too. So I could really resonate with a lot of it, and being a lockup keeper as well.
Yeah.
There's just so much in there.
There is. And people don't realise that. How about you get called out at 2 a.m. and see if someone's dead on the side of the road and all of that.
Yeah.
Everything else. It's bizarre. I loved the job, but my God, it takes its toll. Yeah, it takes its toll. And it'll be with you until you die, basically. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think I had that realization probably a couple of years ago, actually, when a psychiatrist just pointed it out to me. He's like, are you thinking that you're just going to wake up one day and it's all going to be gone? Yeah.
Yeah, I do hope, but it's never going to happen.
It's not going to that's not happening to you, Rosie. You need to learn to live with it. Like, okay, all right, I can do that.
Yeah. So, no, it's an amazing job. It's an amazing job, and full of amazing people, but it hurts everybody in some way.
Yeah, I agree. I always start with how people have come to join the job, and you're New South Wales Police. So I would love for you to tell us how that all came about for you, and a bit about your service and where you went, and just to give everyone a bit of an idea.
Yeah, okay. Well, I left school in 1984 and I had no idea what I wanted to do for a job. University was never mentioned because that's just for smart people. So I asked Dad what to do and he says, go and get a job. So I went and just got a job of whatever or other. And then a mate of mine, back in the day, back in the 80s, a mate of mine, he said, I want to join the cops. So we went to Campbelltown Police Station, and back in the day, they would have application forms on the counter at the police station. So him and I filled it out. Oh yeah, I'll give it a go, whatever. And I bombed out in high school, really bombed out. I was just there for the fun and the mates and everything. And lo and behold, I got into the police, but he didn't because he was too short. So back in those days, if you were less than 5'9", you couldn't get in.
Yeah, I would have been. I'm short.
Yeah. So I got in. And it took about 12 months to process because I lived in a really remote environment. So I didn't have life experience. And when I went for the initial interview, the sergeant said, "Oh, look, yeah, go and get a job and do whatever and experience life a bit more. And in 12 months' time, just come and join us." So that's what happened. Man, so I did a few different jobs in between and, yeah, joined in September 1986. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, class 223.
You never forget the numbers, do you?
No, 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 no. We had a class of 206 initially, and I think 198 of us graduated. Yeah,
It's actually probably not too bad.
yeah, yeah. And as long as back in those days, as long as you had a 40% mark in English and maths at school, that's all they wanted. People that could read and write and do maths, that's all they wanted. And that you were taller than 5'9" as a man, and I think 5'6" as a woman, whatever that is in centimeters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for the next 12 weeks, we got absolutely slammed. All everything, bullied, harassed, intimidated, all the bad school stuff, but fit, really, really, really fit. Yeah, they worked heavily on your fitness back then. 160 push-ups a day wasn't out of the question and stuff like that, and running 5Ks, 10Ks a day. We were so fit. Yeah. And then you
Where were
learn.
you? You weren't it wasn't in Goulburn back then, was it?
Yeah, it
Or
was Goulburn,
oh,
yeah.
it was Goulburn, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So Goulburn and, the day before we marched out, which was the day we marched out on the 19th of December, 1986, and the day before it snowed, and then the day we marched out, it was 35 degrees.
right. Yeah. It's Goulburn for
That's
sure.
Goulburn.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've got a small fondness for Goulburn, which is why I live in Canberra.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, yeah, and then my very first station was at Narooma on the South Coast. Yeah, they had a big push for country stations back then. And, yeah, I put my hand up for places where I could get a bed, basically where I had family, but mum and dad were building a retirement house down there.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
convenient. Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, we moved into mum and dad's retirement house, and for the next 3 years, I was at Narooma, and after 8 months, I was working the streets on my own, on night
Wow.
shift. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a
So,
small it was a small station?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There was 7 of us, so I was the 7th officer, and, yeah, and basically after 8 months, because of court commitments and leave commitments and all that sort of stuff, I was working the truck by myself after 8 months in the job, yeah, doing whatever came in, domestics, deceased, whatever. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Learn by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. Yeah. You're either gonna sink or swim, aren't you, really? So
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and back then there was no mobile phones or anything around like that, so if you're on the side of the highway at, 12 at night or whatever, you've got the radio and that is it, and hopefully the radio worked. Yeah.
yeah. Looking
Go
back at that now, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it was pretty frightening.
Seems
Pretty fr
crazy, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely crazy. You're carrying a gun, you're 8 months in the job. 8 months ago, you were working behind a bar,
Yeah.
and now you got a gun on the side of the road dealing with truck accidents or whatever it was, trying to figure stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really frightening. Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
And so you did go out west.
Yeah,
Um,
later on in my career, I went out west. I went out to a little place called Pilliga, which is in the far northwest of New South Wales, up near Moree, so to speak,
yeah.
and then went to Dubbo, and then into the far southwest corner of New South Wales, a town called Euston, which is down sort of near the corner of South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
literally
I know Euston. I when we moved, from New South Wales to Adelaide, and I passed through there
yeah,
on
yeah,
the way.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
it was nice to see that in your book because I actually Google mapped it because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, that name's so familiar. I have
yeah.
to have a look." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've been there."
A hell of a lot of people would have gone there if they live in Sydney and head to Adelaide by car. It's literally 10 hours west of Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a little two-man station on the Sturt Highway, but my god, it's a busy station. It's so, so busy because you got the Sturt Highway. Directly over the road, you've got a town called Robinvale, over the river, I should say, because 'cause you're on the Murray River.
Mhm.
And all the population of Robinvale comes through Euston to go to Mildura, which is the biggest city near you.
Yeah.
So traffic flows through there, truck accidents and everything was just frighteningly busy. Yeah.
And they only had 2 people. It's
It
so
was a two-man station because a population of 500. So
oh,
they
yeah.
so they work on statistics of 500 people roughly per officer, so to speak, but it was hard to fill the other station because people from Sydney won't go there, it's too far from home.
Yeah. And you were
Yeah.
there a lot by yourself as well, weren't
Yeah.
you? For
In
a
3 and a
stint?
half years, I was by myself for 2 years. Yeah, and just got absolutely hammered. Absolutely hammered. Yeah, yeah. The workload was enormous, and Sturt Highway is the major drug route for all the druggies down in South Australia, where they grow cannabis legally, and they would ship it up to Sydney, and you'd pull over cars with kilos of cannabis in it, or the cash from the proceeds of selling the drugs. You know? I pulled $380,000 out of one car in
Yeah,
cash, you
yeah.
know, all
So
up
just
and yeah,
wasn't
all
it
up, I took about $500,000 in cash off the highway. Yeah.
I remember reading about that, and it was a friend lent them the money or something, didn't they?
Yeah.
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 That's
Yeah,
yeah.
to build a house. Yeah.
Oh, legit.
Yeah, it's all legit. Yeah. My friend, he give me money to build my house. Yeah. Yeah, righto, mate. Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then you pull over cars, as you know, like, you just go, "Yeah, I'm not going there," and you know it's full of baddies and guns and whatever other, and if you're by yourself, "Look, I'm just gonna let that one go." Yeah.
Yeah, for
Many
sure.
a time I pulled over a car and I thought, "I am going to die if I do anything here. I'm just gonna let him go."
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good
Yeah,
night.
exactly. Yeah, because at that same time, remember the, backpack murder up in Northern Territory? The Combi van
I
where
do.
what was his name? And at that same time, there was a national keep a lookout for this car, and we had to look out for a Toyota Land Cruiser utility, and out in the country, there's thousands of them.
There are, yeah.
And he was a known killer, and he had murdered Paul what's his name? Yeah, and I'm on the side of the highway going, "No, I'm not pulling that car over. No,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get shot for anything." Yeah,
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 it's something especially when you work by yourself a lot
yeah.
and in those remote communities, everyone has a firearm out
Oh,
there.
absolutely. Yeah, they all carry 'em. Yeah, they're off to shoot an injured cow or whatever it might have been, or they're kangaroo shooters and everything, and, yeah, and as you read in my book, one of the scariest moments was, I dealt with a matter where he was a professional, kangaroo shooter. He can kill a roo at 400 meters, and I'm literally walking into his, aim of fire. Yeah,
Mm,
literally, and I was waiting for my head to explode.
yeah.
Literally. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I had not a similar job, but I had also a job where the thing is out there in the West and farming communities, rural communities, they're so well trained in using, their firearms.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if all you have is a little weenie pistol, like you're not
and
much
it's
chop,
no.
and it's not unheard of. And unfortunately, we have lost police to ambushes with firearms in the bush.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and one of my jobs that tipped me over the edge was heading to a domestic to look someone up, knowing
yeah,
that they had rifles and they were, well equipped to use them as well. So
yeah. Mm.
it's a scary, scary thing.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, and those 2 poor officers up in Queensland in that where they got shot out, it was inevitable that something like that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
It was inevitable, and it's really sad, really, really, really sad that our brothers and sisters in arms have gone because of that, but, it was inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But even
yeah.
even at New South Wales, I think it was just near Moree, a similar thing happened as well. Like,
That's right. Oh, he worked for not national parks, something like an Environmental Protection Agency or something or other, yeah,
yeah, just
yeah.
yeah. So it's definitely something that you need to be mindful of. And I don't know if a lot of people, especially if they live in the city, are aware of those dangers that police face in the bush because
Mm,
I'm pretty sure people think it's a sleepy little job out in the bush, but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
far from that.
Yeah, exactly. They think it's just a very quiet and you do nothing, you eat donuts all day and all that sort of stuff. And one thing that really irks me is when you see stuff on social media or people being interviewed and they go, "Oh yeah, but they're paid to do that job. They should know better." We're normal human beings. All we do is carry a gun and wear a blue uniform, and we are human beings. Yeah, you don't go through the academy and they change your brain to
Yeah.
cope with these sort of things. They don't do anything about that sort of stuff. And when I worked at the academy not that long ago, I tried talking about mental health and I was terminated because I was talking about mental health.
Yeah, I when I read that in your book, I actually thought, I can
Yeah,
see that happening because I
yeah,
guess I have conversations a lot with people, obviously with the podcast, but something that I don't know how they can change it without talking about it because talking
mm,
about it then admits that there's an issue
yeah,
that they need to address, and I'm not sure that they're prepared to do that.
No, no, and if they admit that there's a problem, they have to deal with it, and to deal with it, it costs money, and they don't have the money to deal with it, so let's just keep it under the blankets or
Yeah.
whatever the saying is,
Yeah, just
let's
stick
just
their head
bury
in
it.
this, yeah, just not acknowledge it at all, and
Yeah,
it's so I when I've had friends join and I've said to them, "Yep, go and join the police, it's a really great job, but you know what you need to do? You need to get yourself some help right from the start," because that's something that I really wish I had done from the start, is kept a track of it, maybe see a psychologist once a year
yeah,
or
yeah,
use your EAP appointments that
yeah,
you have available to you to keep on track of it yourself, because
yeah,
no one
yeah,
else does that for you.
yeah. I, when I was teaching at the academy as a lecturer, I walked in to do a lesson on, juvenile crime. And as you've read in my book, 2 incidents that nearly took my life was dealing with juveniles. And I literally just turned around, turned the screen on, and started to cry in front of the class. And the whole class just sat there in silence. And I said, guys, you've got no idea what happens out there. And 2 of the biggest incidents that nearly tipped me over the edge, which caused massive PTSD for me, was dealing with juveniles. And I told them the whole story and told them about coping mechanisms, what to do. If you go to a bad job, talk to your minister, talk to a mate, talk to your partner, whatever, but deal with it today. And one of the students was a mental health worker by trade. And after the class, they all came up to me and shook my hand and thanked me for being so open and honest about it and telling them my experiences and hoping that they didn't go through those experiences. So they were really pleasantly, they appreciated my total honesty with them. And then I was sacked because I was talking about mental health.
I was gonna say, and then it didn't end real well, did it,
No,
after that? No.
no, but they really, really appreciated it.
Yeah.
They really appreciated it. Like being hugged and my hand shaken by the students was just so great that they were being told it's going to affect you, but you've got to have some mechanisms in place to deal with what's going to affect you as well.
Yeah.
And don't go down the path like I did and enjoy a bottle every day.
Yeah, and that's something I wanna talk to you about, because I know that a lot of police, that's what we do, isn't it? We
Mm.
start
Yeah.
drinking because it's one of the things, one, that's legal and accessible,
Yep.
um,
And it's
but
our
als
culture.
and it's part of the culture, and
Yep.
it's so dangerous because, 1 or 2 drinks can, move into a bottle or
Yeah.
a carton or whatever it is, and
Mm. Yeah.
how did you get yourself out of doing that?
Well, I left the police in 2008. I didn't voluntarily leave. I was basically terminated by
Yeah,
my boss because he didn't talk about emotions or anything. He just said, you know, you admitted in court that your career's over, so I'm ending your career for you. Thank you very much. So I left in 2008, and when I left back then, when you left the police on a pension or whatever rather it is, they told you nothing. We had no information. We had to deal with our stuff ourselves. They gave us no direction in how to deal with anything, like go and see a psychologist, go and see a psychiatrist, whatever other. Fortunately, I was open to other things other than the bottle, and I was into doing a little bit of yoga and all that sort of stuff, but especially exercise. But also my wife, the total advocate for my health since whenever, she said, "We gotta sort this crap out," basically. And
yeah,
and we ran away. We moved and we bought toys. We did all those sorts of things that gave you warm and fuzzy feelings, but it didn't fix the problem. So I went down the path of seeing a myriad of different psychologists, and don't just go to see one and believe that that one psychologist is gonna fix you, because you gotta find the one that works for you. And it took me a good 15 years to find the right one. A whole heap of others did their bit, but after about 12, 18 months, I just wasn't getting any traction. So I moved on to another psychologist and another psychologist. And you've got to find one that fits you, but also understands your career
yeah,
and understands what you're dealing with. And then also having the support of my wife and my kids and everybody else around me was another coping mechanism. But the biggest thing that changed my life was eventually I read a book by a veteran from Vietnam, and he spoke about an organization called Trojan's Trek. And Trojan's Trek is this amazing organization which is totally volunteer run by veterans of emergency and military services. And we take people away out into the bush and we just talk about stuff, coping mechanisms, how to improve yourself, how to change your thinking, why you're always angry. We do all these touchy-feely things, and there's no booze, there's no mobile phones, there's no media, there's no nothing, and for a week, we just openly talk and build relationships and able to express our feelings in front of everybody, and because we're together and we understand the careers, because we've been there, done that, we're able to express things without having to say it as well. Because you and I can have a conversation without even saying words because we've been there, done that. You just go, "Yeah, I went to a domestic. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah." Stuff like that. But it also is a avenue because you're out in the middle of the bush, you can just let it out. And there's been some massive cathartic moments of letting things out where I was crying, literally grown men and women crying about their experiences and getting support from people. And this organization does that free of charge. It costs you nothing to go to these sort of things. And we help people get back to work, get back to their relationships. And then we've got a network across the country through social media and phone and all that sort of stuff where we support each other. And all we have to do is on social media or on WhatsApp or whatever, I'm having a tough day. Can somebody call me? There's a network of support. And I've been with them since 2018. And now I'm a director of the organization and helping, you know, people get back on track, and it's just fantastic. It is so fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's all peer led, but it's also assessed by University of South Australia that we are doing stuff far in excess of what other organisations are doing.
I think, yeah, with the I think Trek is amazing,
Yep,
and I wanna talk more about it because I know it's had a massive impact on your life. And but
yep,
just what you said at the end there is that they're actually doing something,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah,
it's
good.
proven
Yeah,
to be working, and
yeah,
there's so many other organizations that are led by veterans or veteran police officers, or that actually get it, because we know, and even what I'm trying to do with my yoga programs, because we
yep,
know what it's like to be in those job roles,
yep,
and we know what it's like to leave with an injury, especially a mental health injury,
yep,
and how isolating that can be, because when you leave, your friends within the
yep.
organization still either don't want to catch it, or
Mm,
don't know how to communicate with you, because it's like you've immediately changed into a person that is different to who you were before, which is not the
yes.
case. And
Yep,
they don't want to trigger you, because
yeah,
there's just such a lot of misinformation out there. So I think we all understand what it's like to have to go through that by yourself.
yeah,
And if you're not lucky enough to have a partner with you, like you with Libby, especially,
yeah,
it can be so, so difficult. And I think it's so important that there are these organizations out there that get it, because they
yeah.
have the the veteran or the police officer, their health at the forefront, and they just
Mm,
all they want to do is help. And I just think that's
yeah,
an
exactly.
amazing thing.
Exactly, because when you're in a job like ours or anything like that, any of the emergency services or whatever, that becomes your identity. It
Yeah.
becomes you. And then when you leave that organization, you totally lose your identity. And I hung on to that ex-cop identity for way too long. And eventually, as you read in my book, eventually I discovered that hanging on to that identity was destroying my family.
Yeah.
So one night I had to do something about it. So I burnt everything I owned, absolutely everything except for my medals, which I still don't know where they are in the house. I'm too scared to pick them up still because it still hurts me so much. But I'm not going to lose those. But I burnt everything. I kept shirts, pants, my ID card. I kept everything, and I just burnt everything because all my big briefs that I had, because you could keep all that sort of stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
Even my court case, I kept that. I was hanging on to it because I thought it'd be important one day. No, it was just causing more toxic stuff inside my body. And that's what happens with PTSD and being in this sort of career. It's like having a wound filled with pus and you're just hanging on to that and hanging on to it and hanging on to it. And then when you go to a camp like Trojan's Trek Camp, you open up that wound and squeeze all the pus out or start to squeeze the pus out. And you start to release all that hate and anger. And I carried far too much hate and anger for too long. And I buried it in a bottle. And yeah, and self abuse and all that sort of stuff. And that's what you got to do with these sort of things. And doing these talks and everything, we're able to talk about it, and you got to talk about it. I had one guy who came, he was an ex-cop. He went to St. John of God 44 times. Went to the St. John of God place
Wow.
44 times. And all he did was come out with a handful of pills every single time.
Yeah.
He did 2 camps with Trajan's Trek, and it totally changed his life. Because you can go back a second time and it still costs you nothing.
Yeah, that's
We
amazing.
cover all costs.
Mm.
So he went, I took him. I literally took him myself. I picked him up in my car, took him to the airport, got flown down to Adelaide. We went to the, Flinders Ranges, had our camp, did it a second time with him. It changed his life, and he was able to reconnect with people he hadn't spoken to for years, totally years. Unfortunately, he passed not that long ago because of cancer, but it literally changed his life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's incredible, isn't it? 44
yeah.
times.
44 times to a medical facility, and all he walked out of there was a dose of pills every single time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had, medication, and I'm definitely not opposed to it. I think if people need it, then you gotta do
Mm.
what you gotta do, but
Yeah,
it's just there's other options as well, and there's other things
absolutely.
that you can do in conjunction with a medication treatment.
Absolutely, and we don't say, "You gotta stop your pills." We never talk about that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. Take your pills. If you feel you need them and your doctor says you gotta take them, that's your thing, but this is all complementary stuff, and we start every day on a Trojan Street camp with yoga,
Yeah.
mindfulness, and we're introducing ice baths as well, which is optional. You don't have to do that, but we do all this sort of stuff, and then we do lessons throughout the day about how to change your thinking and neuro linguistic plasticity and all that sort of stuff, changing your mindset, talking about rebuilding your brain because PTSD incidents literally damage your brain and you end up with permanent brain damage. And yes, you can rebuild it, but it takes time to heal. Just like a broken arm, broken leg, whatever it might be, it takes time to heal. It took me 17 years to become broken and totally broken. And it's taken me about 17 years to be where I am today. It takes a lot of work, and
It
you'll
real
have ups and downs. You'll have ups and downs like anything else.
it does take a lot of work.
It takes a hell of a lot of
And you
work.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, if you it's difficult. I have my friends, that are leaving the job now,
Yeah.
and they're like, "What can I do next? What am I gonna do?" Because I think we're worried that if we stop and actually look after ourselves for a while, something else is gonna happen or we're not gonna be okay, but
Yeah.
something I try and say is, I think you just need to stop right now
Yeah.
and not worry about working and focus on yourself because it takes a long time
Yeah.
to move through this process of PTSD.
Yeah.
One, acknowledge that you've got it because I think that's something that we struggle with a lot. Like we don't want to be another person that's left a job with a mental injury, a
Yeah.
mental illness, or a mental injury from our job or a psychological injury, whatever you want to call it. I think because of the stigma is still there and it's still attached to it. Even now, when people leave, they don't want to be weak or whatever they think.
Yeah.
Um, and they want to move on as quickly as possible. But you can't always do that because I think if you move from one thing like policing, especially to something else without addressing what's actually going on inside you, you're setting yourself up for failure,
Mm,
aren't you?
that's right.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, in a job like ours, we serve the community every day and we concentrate on serving the community every day, but we don't do anything for ourselves.
Yeah.
So we have to change that mindset of doing everything for the community. And mate, you got to look after yourself. Simple as that. You're number one. You've served. Thank you so much for your service, whether it was 6 months, 12 months, 12 years, whatever it might be. Thank you so much for your service. You've done your bit. You have certainly done your bit and you've changed lives. You won't know who they are, but people will think of you one day and go, that person said something to me. Thank you so much for your service. You've done your bit. Now look after yourself and your partner and your family. Yeah.
I know in your book, you had a really traumatic incident and you just mentioned before the day after that was finalized at court, you lost
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah.
But during that whole part of your life and you're talking about how you pled guilty to something that, you probably shouldn't have, but
Yeah.
it didn't matter
Mm,
to you because at
no,
that time you thought you had made a decision to end your life anyway.
yeah,
So whatever happened was gonna be irrelevant to you
mm,
because of that.
yeah,
And then do you wanna talk about that and what happened after that? Because
mm,
I'm so interested in how you didn't do that.
yeah,
And thank
sure.
goodness you didn't if only if you want to.
No, no,
We can
no,
totally not talk about it.
no, no, you've never asked that question. Nobody has ever, I should say, nobody has ever asked that question. So what happened was I was working in Cooma at the time, and it was 2006, and after working in a one or two man station, you get used to working by yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Even in a station as big as Cooma, where we had 30 staff, I'd still go out by myself because that's just what you do. And they're going, no, 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 Roger, I'll come with you. No, 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 no. Like, if you're busy, I'm just going for a drive. I'm just going to fly the flag, whatever. So that this night in August 2006, my mate and I, we had a hell of a lot of paperwork to catch up on. And I had been sitting at the computer for about 10 hours. No, 8 hours, sorry. 8 hours just typing stuff up, statements and whatever else, writing jobs off and all that. And we could hear explosions around the town. It was quite common because back in the day, you could buy firecrackers in Canberra and take them back to Coomera and set them off at home and all those sorts of things. And people would make, little cracker bombs and blow up letterboxes and stuff like that. And we were sitting in the station. We could hear the odd bang, blah, blah, blah. And we thought, oh, well, we'll just wait for somebody to call a job because we're not going to see anybody. About 10 o'clock, I said to my mate, look, I am tired of sitting here for 8 hours just typing. I'm just going to go for a 10-minute drive. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And I said, look, I'll come back and we'll pick you up and do our last lap of town, make sure all the pubs are shut, and then we can call it quits. Yep, cool. So I went for a drive. And at that time, I was extremely proactive with catching drug dealers and targeting certain drug dealers in town. And I had about 12 cases going where I was monitoring all these crooks around town and building intelligence on all these people so that one day I could get search warrants and go through their houses and do whatever had to be done. And so I was passing all these different houses, seeing what was there. If I see anybody, I'd talk to them. If I saw any cars, I'd write down numbers, so I could build a report. And I was driving down the street towards one particular drug dealer's place, and I could see two shadows in the distance. And they were walking down the street towards this known drug dealer's house. And he was a big dealer, and he was always selling to the kids in town and all that sort of stuff. And I could see these two shadows, and I could tell that they turned around, they saw me, and they just ran. And I thought, oh, here we go. They're up to no good. So what does a policeman do? You take chase yourself. I was in the police car, and they ran through a paddock, so I followed them through this paddock, and it was pretty dark. And then one of them was extremely quick, and he just took off into the distance. And we're running through the paddock, and it was down into an old, when they built the Snowy scheme, it was an old camp area where they had all this camp accommodation for all the labourers and everything. And there was a road, and I drove through the paddock, and old mate was next to me, the second guy, and I thought that he did the jackrabbit thing and turned around and ran behind me. And as before I hit an embankment on the other side of the road, I turned the car, hit the skids, jumped out to take chase because I thought he was running behind me. As I jumped out of the car, I could see somebody under the back wheel of my car. And I thought, holy Jesus, this ain't good.
Yeah.
Um, he was moaning and groaning and all that sort of thing. And I reversed the car, but I only reversed it a couple of inches because I knew if I kept going, I'd probably run over more of him. But what actually happened was my back driver's wheel was on his chest, on his back. And I reversed the car off him and I called urgent duty. I need backup immediately. And I left him there. I didn't move him and all that sort of stuff. Ambulance were called. Cooma is an hour and 15 minutes south of Queanbeyan, our head station. And the duty officer there said, call out the local duty officer, which I did. Ambulance came. I had no idea who this person was. And I still have not seen his face apart from that one day in court. We got him onto a stretcher. They flew him out with the Care Flight helicopter and he went to hospital and I got taken to the station and put into custody, breath tested. And while I'm sitting in the station, still fully armed, they came in and said, "Rog, we think he's dead. We've been told that he's not going to survive." And it was a 15-year-old boy. And I just absolutely broke, absolutely broke, started crying and all that sort of stuff. After about an hour and a half, I said, "Am I able to have a support person?" Because it's been a couple of hours since the accident, about 2 hours since the accident. You've done all your tests and all that sort of stuff. And they said, "Oh, geez, that's a good idea." And then I said, "Do you think it's a good idea if I get rid of my gun? I've still got it."
Yeah.
And they looked at each other, the 2 duty officers now, plus another the guy that I was working with, Darren. They looked at each other and they went, "Oh, shit, he's still got his gun." And yeah, I was prepared,
Mm.
well and truly prepared. And we went to the gun unloading room, and it was just it used to be a cupboard. It was a tiny little room that only one person could physically fit in, really. And there was 4 of us in there,
Yeah.
just in case Rog did the thing. I unloaded my gun, locked it away and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just broken, absolutely broken. Libby came into the station and she was waiting for a day like this because she knew it was a shit job. There was
Yeah.
eventually something was going to happen. Eventually something was going to happen. And we went out into the mill room of the station. And she's going, "What the hell happened?" And I explained to her what happened. And she goes, "Oh my God, what's going to happen now?" I said, "I have no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen now." And I've spoken to the legal rep from the union, and his words were, "Do not say a word to anybody. Apart from your name and date of birth, don't admit anything, don't say anything, don't write anything, say nothing. Make a couple of notes in your notebook if you have to, but do not say a word." And I'm sitting there going, "Okay, I've killed this kid," and all that sort of stuff. And then we heard the chopper fly off because the hospital was close to the station. And then Darren, my partner, comes in and he says, "Rog, Rog, Rog." And I get up and he goes, "Rog, he's going to survive. It's not as bad as they said. He's not dead." And I literally collapsed. Darren grabbed me by my jacket, my leather jacket, and he held me up off the floor. And my legs are shaking and all that sort of stuff. And I just started to weep again. Libby came over, she hugged me. And eventually my commander came in, and he was my boss for 7 years. And I had never spoken to him in that time. He was my boss when I was out at Euston, and he never came into the station to talk to me. He came in to tick and flick all the books, do his annual inspection, and drive off. And in 7 years, he finally came in and he said, "Roger, let's go and have a talk." So he made me a cup of tea, and 15 minutes later, he got up and walked out. And that's the only time we spoke in 7 years, until the day after my court case. So anyway, I was told, yeah, he's going to survive. He ended up with 8 broken ribs, 2 punctured lungs, a broken arm. He was back at school 6 weeks later, but my son went to the same high school, and our second child, our eldest daughter, they both went to the same high school, but our son was in year 10 at the time, and this kid was in year 9. So there was a sort of a network there. So I have no idea what happened at school, but it was horrible. That's all I know. It was horrible for our son. No doubt there was abuse and bullying and all that sort of stuff. I still don't know to this day what happened. And I really don't want to know,
No.
because of the impact and all that sort of stuff. But my son had to step up and become dad because I was broken, absolutely broken. I didn't know how to basically wipe my backside. I was absolutely broken. Then for the next 9 months, I went through the process of being served 2 summonses while sitting at home with my wife. Drive manner dangerous, causing grievous bodily harm, and negligent driving, causing grievous bodily harm. And throughout the entire process, I was never told by my legal representatives whether I should plead guilty or not guilty. That decision was left up to me.
They
There
didn't
was
give you any advice at all.
no advice whatsoever.
Incredible, isn't it?
Absolutely no advice.
Yeah.
Rog, here's the brief. This is what we've got. We've got all the information now. Now we're leaving the decision up to you. Here's a guy who couldn't even wipe his backside. Here's a guy who wanted to basically get a rope and jump off a tree. And Rog, we're leaving it up to you. And I thought, nobody gives a shit about me. And in the end, I just said, I'm going to plead guilty to the lesser charge as long as they throw the higher charge out. I ended up getting a whole heap of supporting references from different people, from medical professionals. I had 4 different psychologists. One was an ex-cop, and he was great because he knew the whole process. He knew everything. And so I had 4 psychologist reports saying what the impact was on me. I had all these different reports. I had commendations from the community out at Euston, coming from the mayor and different representatives out there, and from the local community in Coomera. I had all these supporting reports, and the magistrate literally said, Roger, I have no idea why you pleaded guilty to this matter. You shouldn't have, and I'm dismissing the matter. And I broke down. Absolutely broke down. I was totally broken. I actually sat in the witness box at that time, and said, my career is over. But I didn't want the career to be over. I wanted to move into a different part of the career. And so I went down, and then my commander was in the courtroom that day. And then literally the next morning, he rang up and said, Roger, you gave evidence yesterday that your career is over, so I'm signing your papers. Goodbye. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Absolutely incredible. So, no,
Yeah.
I did not leave the police force. I was terminated through the process of receiving a very mediocre pension and all that sort of stuff. And no, it wasn't a mortgage breaking payout and all that sort of stuff. All the rumors that used to go
Yeah.
around that when you
Yeah.
got out of the cops, you get this mortgage busting payout. No, you don't. You get some money, but it is taxed at something like 67% or whatever it was. I didn't end up with that much money at all. But I ended up with permanent brain damage. I've had 3 different psychiatrists look at my head, and they've all agree I've got at least a 10% brain deficit.
Wow.
So I've got pretty significant brain injury. And yeah, I struggled with alcohol even to the day. I still enjoy a drink, but I don't drink 3 bottles of wine a night like I used to. Um, yeah, yeah, and I still have nightmares. I still have hyperactivity and hypervigilance and all that sort of stuff. I still have chronic panic attacks at work. So I've got a gift that just keeps giving, as they say. It's a lovely gift. It's a very unique gift.
Oh,
But
well,
out
I'm
of that,
feeling it too.
but out of all of that, I'm still giving back to the community because I am a huge supporter of doing stuff for the community. So I still do work for Rotary, but also now Trojans Trek, and that's my passion now. And I'm helping veterans of whatever service. And back onto the veteran thing, if I could just say, we all talk about the military and their service, right? And their service is fantastic. You know, I'm not discrediting it one iota. But when they go away on deployment and become, confronted with tragic circumstances, their deployment is about 6 months, maybe 12 months. They might do 1 or 2 duties overseas and everything. You and I, we were deployed every single day of our career. So I did 17 years on the front line, 17 years of being impacted by everything the community can throw at you.
I love that you've just said that because, and I'm smiling and nodding as you're saying it.
Yeah,
My husband was in defense,
yeah.
and a few of his friends asked me, "Oh, I'm thinking about joining the cops." I was like, "Oh, I
You
just,"
idiot.
yeah, pretty much. But one of the things that I
Yeah,
used to say is that when you get deployed in defense, that there's a process to that.
yeah,
And they speak to psychologists, and you know that you're going to war or
yeah,
whatever you're doing on your
yeah,
deployment.
yeah,
You're very, very aware of what you're about to step into, even though, of course, and I've spoken to veterans, it can be so much worse than what you ever imagined, but you have a preparation process for that.
yeah.
When you're in the police, there's every
Uh,
day, it's every single day.
yeah,
Every single day, you don't know what's going to happen.
yep,
Every single day, you're a target
yeah,
because of the color uniform that you're wearing.
yep,
You're very vulnerable, and there's no preparation for that. You're not properly. I don't believe that you're properly prepared for that. And then
mm,
if you want to take it a step further and apply to work at a small station or a lockup keeper residence, you're literally living in a fishbowl.
yep,
Um, you are a target 24/7 then,
yeah,
but not only you, your partner who
yep,
is responsible for taking phone calls when you're not there,
yep,
answering the door when you're not there. Your
yep,
children that, like you said, go to the same school as the kids in town
yep,
who are the children of crooks that are in town. You
Yep.
know, it's a whole 'nother thing that you're totally not prepared for.
Yeah. Your entire family is a target.
It is, and
Yeah.
so like you said, it's like going to war every single day because
Every single
that's what
day.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Like literally standing in your station in a one man or two man station, you'll have somebody come in and end up threatening you with a knife or punching you or whatever. Or you go to I went to a job where I had to inquire about a lost property or a concern for welfare for this particular lady. And she chased me off the property with an axe and a shovel.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for these sort of
You
things?
don't. There's nothing.
You know, you go to a domestic and here comes a husband around the corner with a knife in his hand wanting to stab you. How do you prepare for that sort of stuff? And that's at 2 in the morning or 10 at night or 5 in the morning. You know, start your day with your morning breakfast, your Cocoa Pops, and then go and pull a body out of a car.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
How do you prepare for that?
yeah, and I don't know what the answer is either. It's so difficult, and we we need people to do those jobs.
Absolutely.
We need the good people to not only do the jobs but stay in the jobs and feel supported and
And
have
that was the biggest problem. In my 17 years in the job, I had 10 years of obscene bullying. So I didn't get any support for 10 of my 17 years.
you actually got the
Uh,
opposite of support.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Threats of violence, threats of dismissal, threats of demotion, threats of being charged, just micromanaging and bullying and intimidation for 10 years. So I've got PTSD from not only the work, but also the work environment. Yeah.
Absolutely, and
And
I
and
know
I
a
have
lot.
massive mistrust issues. I don't trust anybody and nobody.
Yeah.
I struggle to trust people because the people that I sat next to in the police truck put complaints in about me. And this is the person that you trusted with your life going to domestics and stuff like that, and then they put a complaint in about you.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
it's
really, really hard
the
because
impact is wide, isn't it?
absolutely, once they get to a level of management, they are always right. It's really hard for the subordinate like you or I to say that we are the right person and then be supported by management to believe you. Yeah. Yeah. And no matter what you say, they are always right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's tough. And yeah, look, it's not just police, it's
Yeah.
every service, you know, whether it's nursing or whatever, it's all the same. And these sort of jobs take their toll and they should have a life expectancy. Okay, you want to join the cops? You're only doing it for 5 years because we want to protect you,
Yes.
you know, because it's going to break you eventually. Because the average life expectancy of a copper is around 17 years at the most.
Mm.
You know, I got to the 17-year point and all that sort of stuff. How many years did you do?
I did 12, and when I
Yeah.
joined, I remember them saying actually at the academy that it was I think it was 3 and 5, like 3 for women and 5 for men at that
Hmm.
time,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it's less than that now.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
it's definitely not a a long-term role,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
anymore.
Because you're not just dealing with doing stuff for the community, you're dealing with the impact of shift work and working weekends and missing out on family life. And in 17 years, I had Christmas with my family 5 times.
Yeah.
You know, like all those sorts of things and missing out on kids' birthdays and all those milestone moments because you don't have a normal life because you don't have go home at 5 o'clock Friday and come back to work on Monday. You work weekends. The best night of the week is Friday and Saturday night. You're out there dealing with pub brawls.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Someone that's I've not met her, but she sounds beautiful, and she wrote the last chapter of your book is your
Mm,
beautiful wife, Libby.
mm.
How I know it's been such a big impact having her, but how did she come to you and say, I think she was the one that said to you, "You need help," right?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
the one.
She knew for years. She knew for years I had problems.
Yeah.
When we were in Dubbo and I had that very first near death experience with that child that nearly stabbed me to death over a packet of Maltesers while I was off duty protecting the community. Stupid me. She knew then that I started to get problems then. That was in 1999. But Euston was the best and worst place for us. It was the best place because it really bonded our family, but the worst place because of the impact of the work on myself and my family. And I just deteriorated rapidly there. I didn't notice it, but Livy certainly noticed it. Because they pick up on the things. You become moody, you become grumpy, you scream at the drop of a hat and all that sort of stuff. And she she just coped. She had to step up. She had to do things over and above what a wife should do. My mood changes constantly and was really bad back then. And then eventually, as I said, she became my advocate for my health, and she sourced anything from anybody. How can I help? How can she do this? And she drove me to all sorts of medical appointments all over the place. And here's the thing, guys, if you are suffering from PTSD and you have a partner or a person that you seriously trust and you're living single, but this person seriously trusts you, with your first couple of appointments, when you see your psychologist or psychiatrist, have them come in with you to explain how you are, because you go in there and you go, "Oh, I'm fine. Oh, yeah, I'm a little bit moody. Oh, yeah, I've got this problem, blah, blah, blah." No, have your partner come in. And that's what I always did. Lydia would come in and go, "No, he's a dickhead. He does this, 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 and this, and this." Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to have that neutral person that sees it from the outside world, because you're a person with mental health telling a professional about your mental health. You're seeing it through your broken eyes.
Yeah.
You don't get what you're doing, but your partner does. Yeah. Your
Yeah.
partner sees you at night punching yourself and scratching at your face and kicking out and lashing out and screaming in your sleep. You don't see that. They do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved seeing her chapter at the end of the book because
Yeah.
I don't know if you listened, I had Sarah O'Brien on, who's another wife of a former New South Wales police officer,
Yeah.
and she is a very strong advocate for her husband.
Yeah.
Incredible woman. And
Yeah.
Libby, when I was reading about her, reminds me so much of her.
Yeah.
Um, and they just don't have a voice yet.
No.
And that's why I wanted to get Sarah on, because she has such a strong voice and
Yeah.
she'll use it, which I think is amazing. And I just didn't I wanted other wives especially, but partners of police to feel seen in our journey, because
Yeah.
we can get stuck in our own little pity party,
Yeah.
and not recognize the impact that they have on us. And I think
Correct.
it's just so
Yeah.
important. So I thought that was a really beautiful part of the book, was to
Yeah.
give her a voice and her involvement in your PTSD.
Yeah. I wrote that book over 6 years, and it took a hell of a lot of work to write that book, and I'd write chapters and it'd be all hate and anger and all that sort of stuff. And then I'd rewrite it after I saw a psychologist or whoever it was. And then when we were living out at Young for a short period of time, we had an incident and we both went to an organization called Quest for Life, and it helped us incredibly as well. It was all about dealing with trauma and how to manage it and all that sort of stuff, because we live with trauma. And while she was there, she wrote that chapter,
Ah.
and she took it to two of her mentors at Quest for Life and said, "What do you think?" And they said, "Absolutely perfect." I asked her to write that because I was telling a story from a father and a broken policeman and all that sort of stuff, but I always spoke about my family, and I wanted the impact of the family to be heard from the other side as well. And that's what Libby did. And even when I read her chapter today, I just start crying.
Yeah, I was
Because
definitely crying. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, it's very eye opening, extremely eye opening when you read her chapter. Yeah, yeah, I tell all my war stories, and I'm broken. I went to court, blah 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 blah. And then when you see Libby's bit, oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Yeah,
So I called the podcast Triumph Beyond Trauma because I wanted to share with other people who
yeah,
might have had, or might be having,
yeah,
suicidal thoughts or ideation or depression or anxiety or PTSD.
yeah,
And we get stuck in our, like I said before, our own little pity parties,
yes,
because we can't see the triumph that can come. And
yeah, absolutely.
triumph, I think, can be anything to, being able to get out of bed for those that can't do that, and have a shower and wash your
Yeah,
hair if you haven't done that for a month.
yeah.
But you're doing amazing things with Trojan's Trek, and you've mentioned
Thank
it
you.
already.
Yeah.
But I want to know how that came about for you. How did you get involved at the start?
Ah, well, I was, as I said, I read a book by a Vietnam veteran, Shotfire, I think it's called. I've still got the book. And he spoke about Trojan's Trek in there because he was one of the founding members of Trojan's Trek. And Trojan's Trek came about because of these two guys, Moose and Dogs, their names are.
Of course.
Of course, Moose and Dogs, they came about, they saw too many of their mates taking their lives and being traumatized by their experience in Vietnam. And so they created this foundation. And for 10 years, they did this. And here's two big burly blokes, and we're going away on a camp and we're talking about feelings. How do you do that? Like,
Yeah.
but you got to talk about that sort of stuff. And when I read about it in the book, the whole book resonated with me because Dogs wrote about his experience in Vietnam and all the tragedy and trauma, and it just looked like my life,
Yeah.
dealing with tragedy and trauma and all that sort of stuff in my career and everything. And then he spoke about doing a camp and reflecting on what was happening throughout the camp, throughout different stages of the book and all that sort of stuff. And it just resonated so much. So I did some Googling and I got in contact with Moose, and Moose said, "You're on the next camp." And I went to the camp and it just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. We go in as broken warriors and we come out as repaired warriors. That, we come out as a rising warrior, so to speak, after 5 days of working with peers, talking about peers and so on. And then in 2021, after all the bushfires through South Australia and Victoria and everything,
Yeah.
they had a camp specifically for emergency services. It was always a blend, but this one was just for firefighters, cops, and ambos. And I was asked to be a mentor and facilitator on that camp. And that's a massive step where you go from being just a participant to being a facilitator. And here you are in front of a group of veterans who've experienced their stuff from South Australia, Victoria, and yeah, in New South Wales on this camp. And you're talking about stuff and being honest and being, talking about your emotions and traumas and stuff like that, and how to cope with those sort of things. And then, and now I'm a director of Trojan's Trek and helping track down people who need to go on this and tracking down funding and all that sort of stuff. And that's our biggest problem. It's all self-funded. How do we fund it? But yeah, and just it just gives me a buzz that people go in there and they've got their own baggage. When they come out, they're all a buzz and they're feeling better and they've got new direction, or they've got a direction, and that they understand that every day is a different day. And just waking up every morning is an achievement. So give yourself a slap on the back and pat on the back and go, I made it. I made it to another day and I'm going to get better. And yes,
Yeah.
you have your ups and downs, as I said, but you are going to get better and you are going to build relationships and you are going to become that normal person and you are going to leave a legacy. You will leave a legacy that if you do what you want to do and need to do, you will leave a legacy. Instead of leaving a legacy of a big house with all the flash cars and a family that hates you, a legacy of when they're at your, who's going to carry your coffin?
Yeah.
Think of that. Who is going to carry your coffin? Is there going to be just a bunch of people just dragging you into the cemetery, or is there going to be people fighting to say he or she was a wonderful person? I want to be that person that takes
Mm.
you to your grave and thanks you for your service and your time and your love.
I love that you've made your way through Trojan's Trek from a participant to now being a director. Like,
Mm.
obviously speaks volumes of the program.
Mm. It's
Um,
fantastic, absolutely
yeah.
fantastic. And yes, it's cost you nothing apart from time, absolutely nothing. And we go to either South Australia or Queensland, two different places. We get away from phones, we get away from social media, we get away from all that so we can concentrate on you and us and help you heal and help you get direction and do what you need to do. Either go back to work or, start afresh or rebuild your relationships. It's all about you, and it
Yeah.
costs you nothing, not a cent apart from a week away.
So it's a week long.
Yep,
And how
yep.
many participants do you have
We have
usually?
15 participants, and we always have about 3 mentors per participant. And yeah, and we
Yeah.
don't camp in the bush per se. We go to the Flinders Ranges where there is accommodation and you have showers and there's a kitchen and all that sort of stuff. And we build a team with all the participants and facilitators, and over the week we just have this magical experience of working together to turn you, into a beautiful person by the end of the week, and a new network of friends. And the other camp is up near Toowoomba in Queensland. Yeah, and it's all undercover that you're not sleeping on the dirt or anything or other like that. but you got to get away from the noise, the social media noise, the media
Yes.
noise, and all that sort of stuff, so that you can concentrate on yourself. Yeah,
Yeah. What do you I know, like, I've taken part in retreats before
yeah,
and programs, and I always have this little voice on my shoulder that says, "No, don't do it," and it's anxiety for sure,
mm,
because you don't know. You don't know what's gonna come, you don't know
yeah.
what's gonna come out.
You're scared of the unknown.
Yes,
Yeah,
very much so, very
yeah.
scared. So what do you
But
say to people who might be thinking about taking part in the program, but might be feeling that bit of anxiety or feeling a bit scared to do so?
look, all I can say is take the leap. You're scared of the unknown. You have no idea what's going to happen at the end. And are you scared of it breaking you or making you? And what invariably, invariably, it makes you a better person by the end of the camp. Yeah, let's call it a retreat. It's just
Yeah,
fantastic. You fly into Adelaide or you fly into Brisbane, you get picked up on a bus, you're amongst peers. You're amongst people who have walked in your shoes. They get you. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to break anything down because, yeah, we've got ambos on there. Well, the camps I've done, ambos, military, cops, corrective services. We've walked the same path. We've all got our own traumas. We don't have to explain anything. And look, it's just outstanding. It is just outstanding. The smiles at the end of the camp says it all. Look it up on social media, Trojans Trek.
yeah,
Um,
I'll link to all of the websites and everything on in the
yeah,
show notes because it's
yeah,
amazing.
and we're always looking for more people, and we're always looking for people who can help with corporate sponsorship as well, because it just does outstanding stuff, and, you know, we it's just outstanding. I can't explain it in simple terms. It's just
Life-changing
life
stuff.
changing. Yeah, all those silly, normal journey words and all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. It is just fantastic. And we've got a camp coming up in April next year. I don't know if we've got another one before the end of this year, but we have to colour couple because we're burning out our participants. Everything is run by veterans.
Yeah.
Like it's a total volunteer led organisation. The whole thing is volunteers and veterans of those services. And we've all got our own different skill sets and we all complement each other and we're all sisters and brothers. Guys, if you give it a chance, just come along. Just come along and you'll be a different person by the end of it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Before we
Yep.
finish today, I usually ask a couple of questions, but the one that I really like to ask, especially to those people that have had suicidal ideation,
Yep.
is what is something that you could share to other people that might be in that situation right now to give them a little bit of hope, I guess, or knowledge
Well,
that things aren't always going to be this way?
yeah. That if you're suffering and you're in that black stage, it's not the end of the story. It's just part of your story, and the way you recover is it's up to you, of course. And you can't just sit there and wait for someone to snap their fingers and fix it for you. You have to become open and honest and take those steps. And yes, suicide finishes it for you, but the impact on the people that love you is far worse. You know, I went to too many suicides, in my career and probably in your career as well. And yeah, they've got an easy when you take your life, it's an easy resolution because the noise. I totally get it. The noise just pushes you to that point. It's hard to explain, but yeah, it just yeah, it's going to be easy if I just drop off the page today. But the impact on your loved ones far exceeds, you taking your life. It's gonna be tough steps to deal with that sort of stuff, really, really tough steps. You'll go into the depths of emotions and feelings and thoughts as you're going through those steps of working with your professionals, whoever you work with, but you have to take those steps, and you will be a stronger person for it at later on in your life, and then you will be able to help somebody else, and this is the thing, and this is why I volunteer and all those sorts of things. And my motto is this: the greatest exercise for your heart is when you help somebody else stand up. And that's why I do Trojans Trek. And that's why people who are having those dark thoughts, if you start giving back to the community in a different way and you're helping others through Rotary, through Lions, CWA, whatever you want to do, start making yourself feel better by doing something for the community or for loved ones or in your church or whatever it might be, to help those people stand up and feel better. And then they will thank you and you will start to change. And it's a tough journey. It's a tough, tough journey. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you that when you start to do something for other people,
Mm.
even though you might not have the wants or need or capability to do something for yourself,
Mm.
even,
Yeah,
but if you can do little things for other people, that can be the greatest healing
absolutely.
that you can do.
Yeah,
Yeah, to
yeah,
get the joy out of that.
yeah, yeah. And all those things that happened to you in the past, yes, that is your story. That's part of you. It'll be with you forever. But you got to work on your coping mechanisms and your ability to deal with all that stuff. And it's still a problem for me. I still talk to professionals. Even at work now, I talk to the employee assistance program quite regularly and other professionals. Yeah, there's plenty of organisations out there that you can ring up, Lifeline and all those sorts of things to get help.
Yeah, and
Seriously.
I always link to those in the show notes, right
Yeah,
in there because it's so important to be able to reach out or use the phone and call someone, and some of them have amazing text messaging services if you don't want to talk to them.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
so important. I just what I really want to say is thank you so much for your service, of course,
Mm,
and for doing all the things that you've done, but for writing your book and then also for coming on here with me today and talking about it because I think by sharing our stories, we almost give other people permission to do the same.
yeah,
And when we talk about our experiences, we give people, a bit of motivation to say or check in with themselves and how am I doing? And should I talk to someone? And
yeah,
how is my family going? So I really, really appreciate you coming on and talking about everything that you have today. I
yeah,
think it's so
thanks.
important and I really
Thanks.
appreciate it.
Yeah. The title of my book, I called it The Price of Protecting Others. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much what your service does.
Yeah.
You pay a price for protecting others. And Libby gave me that title. And my mum and dad tried to understand my PTSD for years and years and years. And dad's passed now, but he was a war veteran. My background is German. Dad was German. He was in the Hitler Youth and he was given a gun at age 15 to go and shoot Russians. So he had his traumas throughout his life.
Yeah.
But my mum never understood my PTSD until she read my book. She bought my book and she took it home, and 2 days later, she rang me up and said, "I finally get it. I get why you are the way you are and why you push away your loved ones because 'cause you're trying to protect them.
Yeah.
But it's the loved ones that you need around you to protect you. But you don't want those people to be traumatized by your trauma. That's why you push them away.
That's right. Yeah.
That's why we have broken marriages all the bloody time.
Yes.
But it's those people that have been with you through that journey that are the most important to you. Yeah, and you need to be open and honest with them. And by Jesus, I've told Libby stuff that, like, it was her birthday when I told her that I was suicidal. Happy birthday, Lib. Yeah, that was her birthday. Yeah, yeah, and she's still with me 38 years later.
What a woman.
What a woman.
What a woman.
And we say to each other all the time, "Why do I love you? I don't know. You shit me to tears and you're stuffed in the head, but I do. I have no idea why. I've
Yeah.
done everything in my power to push her away, and she's still with me."
Yeah. You're a very, very lucky man.
Oh,
I know you
goddamn,
know it.
yeah, oh, yeah, goddamn I am, and I've never forgotten a birthday.
I bet.
Yeah, but this has been awe-inspiring. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. I really
Mm,
appreciate it. I
yeah,
can't wait to see what's next for Trojan's Trek. I think
yeah,
it's fantastic and I love it so much.
yeah, yeah, and if you're able to come on a camp, if you want to,
Yeah.
you've got my contact details, reach out and, yeah, we'll get you down from your Coffs Harbour, aren't you? Or
I am,
what?
yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you up to Queensland or South Australia, and I'll be on that camp. Guaranteed, I'll be on
Hey.
that camp, and we'll get to meet each other.
Yeah, that'll be so good. I know that's one of the things in podcasts. You don't get to meet a lot of people in person, but it is so
Yeah,
great to meet you. It's been
yeah.
fantastic.
And you as a yoga person, you can help us with our lessons and all that sort of stuff because
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm terrible at it.
It's
I
all
love doing it, but I'm not a good teacher at all, and I don't teach, thank
yeah,
God,
no,
but
it's all practice. Practice,
yeah,
practice, practice.
I know, but it is a
Yeah.
wonderful thing, and it is so good for your mental health. Yeah, I did a session yesterday, a yoga session, and I was in a bad place, and when I left, I was in such a good place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been life-changing for me. You know, you
yeah,
Trojans check the year, and
yeah,
yoga's been like that for me.
yeah,
Absolutely incredible, and I don't know where I would be now without that practice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
really, really good. Mm. No, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
No,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, make sure to hit subscribe so you never miss any new ones. We release fresh content every Tuesday. And while you're there, take a moment to leave us a review. I would genuinely appreciate your thoughts. Don't forget to connect with me on Instagram and Facebook at Tactical Yoga Australia and share this episode with your friends, family, and workmates to spread inspiration. Your support means the world. My name is Rosie Skeen. Join me again next week for another empowering and positive episode of Triumph Beyond Trauma. Until then, be kind to your mind and trust in the magic of your consistent and positive efforts. Triumph beyond your trauma is closer than you think. Have the best week.